Good evening. RuthAnn again and Craig helping me, and we're going to have a good time as we share together. Well, Jesus has been preaching every day, and the disciples, they're getting kind of used to Jesus, but in a way, they're getting to where they kind of start telling him what to do instead of the other way around. And that was just the way it is, that sometimes you can kind of get rote when you're serving the Lord and think, this is the way you do it. Well, that's what the disciples were doing today. There was a big crowd, and it was out in the desert. And it was getting close to evening, and they've been there all day. And the people were just scattered. In fact, there were probably more than 5,000. That's without the women and children. So I don't know, maybe the 15,000. But anyway, we know there was 5,000 men. So here they are. And so disciples, they think they've been there long enough. So they start instructing Jesus. And they say, send the crowd away. Excuse me? Send the crowd away. They're hungry. They've been here all day. And he said, it's getting late. Yes? And he said, well, you got any more problems? Well, yeah. The people are hungry. And he said, if you don't hurry, well, you know what's going to happen. The stores are going to close. And they can't go to the villages and get anything to eat, and they've traveled today. They're instructing Jesus because Jesus doesn't know what he's doing. Who's hungry? Have you heard the crowd complaining? No. Who's complaining? The disciples are. They want to go home. They don't want to meet needs. And so Jesus, like he always does, he looked at them and said, they don't need to depart. And now they know it's coming. They don't need to go home. I know it's in a desert place. He said, do you have anything in the little, I guess there was one that carried the bag, and so he said, how much do you in there? Oh, just a few pennies, not enough to feed this crowd. Okay. I think he's trying to really paint a picture for them and to expose them. And so Jesus turned to them and said, do you have anything here at all? Any food in the crowd? Oh, yes, we've already cased the crowd. And there's only one here that had anything at all. He's just a little kid. And his mother fixed him 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he hadn't eaten all day. Why didn't he eat it? Wasn't he hungry? Well, apparently not. I think I just think he wasn't hungry. We don't know. So then Jesus said, they don't need to go away. Let's have them sit down and let's get organized. Let's put them in 50s here. 50 here, 50 here, 50 there. So they say, all right. So they go out and they get them all. And he said, where's that little boy that brought those? And so Philip said, well, he's right here. And so Jesus looked at him, and he was so pleased. He didn't anymore think about keeping, and I'm sure he was hungry, But he hadn't even thought about it. And he took all he had, and he said, "Here, Jesus." Well, the disciples, they're still just walking and looking around in the crowd and so forth. And then, after he gave it to Jesus, he took it in his hands and he began to break it. You see, whatever Jesus receives multiplies. Whatever you give to Jesus, your life multiplies. Did you ever stop to think where you would be today if it hadn't have been for Jesus? Your life is where it is today because Jesus multiplied. And as it went, and just like it does in our lives, as it began to multiply, and then he gave it to the disciples, and their eyes are beginning to bug out and everything and so forth. And they forgot all about the fact that it was late and the stores are going to close and all these other things. And so they were doling out in the crowd, and the crowd was happy, and they were all eating. And the Bible said they ate till they were filled. God doesn't ever send us away half empty. No, the Bible said he fills us full. He certainly filled my cup full. Well, after it was over with, he said, "Well, do you have any leftovers?" They said, yeah, we do. That there's 12 baskets. He said, "Just don't waste anything. Let's pick up those 12 baskets." I always wonder what they did with those 12 baskets. Now, the little boy, I'm sure he had enough to take home, but 12 basketful? I don't know how he'd handle it, but I'm sure he got his share. But they were going out in a boat the next day. Well, and what are they going to eat? Probably some leftovers. And you know, Jesus is not wasteful. So I want to look here what their excuses were. "Send the multitude away. It is getting late. We're in the desert. Let them go to the village and take care of their own needs." Well, now that sounds pretty logical, doesn't it? You know, when I think about doing something his way or my way, sometimes my way sounds pretty logical. Yeah, sure, I think we could handle this. Send them away. And Jesus doesn't operate that way. And it wasn't the people that were complaining. They were hooked on Jesus, and they wanted to hear more and more and more what he had to say. So when there is, I think about do you remember Elijah in the Bible? He had stopped up the rains. You remember that? And it was about 3, and he only said it was going to be for 3 years. And so after 3 years, it was time to turn the spigot back on, but it had accomplished what it was supposed to, and that was to bring that nation of Israel to their knees, and it did up on the mountaintop. Well, if it was time to turn it on, what did Elijah do? He put his head between his knees. And then he had a companion, and he said, "Go out to the sea and see if you see anything. Are there any clouds? Does it look like rain?" So he went out there, but came back and said, "No, not a thing." Put his head between his knees. "Lord, you told me 3 years." Went again. Went again. Went again. Nothing. I don't know how long that Elijah would have told him to go. But on the 7th time he said, "Well, I don't see much." How much? You see, don't despise the day of small things. God is in the big things, and he's in the little things too. He said they're just a cloud the size of a man's hand. Oh, get ready for a cloudburst. You see, he was going on, thus saith the Lord. And that day there was a cloudburst and people were running and the enemy was running and everybody was running to get away from the cloudburst. I think about that little woman when it says, don't despise the small things. The Pharisees, you know, they were money people. And they had a lot of money. So when they go to the temple, they wanted to be sure that everybody knew what they had put in. So they made a great show of it. And Jesus just watched it. And pretty soon, this little woman, she walked out and put in a penny. A small coin. Couldn't have been worth more than a penny. And Jesus turned and said, she's given more than all the rest of you. What do you mean she's given more? Because she gave her heart. And you know, when you give Jesus all that you have, there's a blessing with it. And she received a blessing that day. He singled her out in the crowd. He separated it from the scribes and the Pharisees. And she went home with a blessing. Don't despise the small things. If you just have a little, give him the little, but it's all. And then too, sometimes think, maybe you don't even have a penny. You give him your work. That's what Craig does all the time. He works. And sometimes he gets really tired because he's working for the church, he works for people. He feels like if he's doing it for people, he's doing it for the church. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's money. But anyway, God knows. He knows what you put in the offering plate. Do you kind of watch it as it go by and kind of hang on to it and finally let it go? God sees. Because God answers according to the heart. Where the Bible said, where your heart is, there your treasure will be also. God knows the heart of everybody that's listening. He knows my heart. He knows your heart. And if your heart's not in it, it can't be blessed. Tell Jesus, you make a decision today to put your heart in this gospel. And then the Bible said, you will have treasures. What a joy that we can be together and talk and share the things of Christ. And I pray that today and this week you will have a marvelous week. God bless you. RuthAnn Polston, The Life That Wins.